Thank you for joining the informational webinar for the Climate Variability and Predictability Program for the FY2024 Climate Program Office Notice of Funding Opportunity. I'm Ginny Sells. I'm the Program Manager for the CVP program. And Jose, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Jose Alguerri, the Program Specialist for the CVP program.
So today we'll be talking about two competitions that are in the FY2024 NOFO, and those include Advancing Understanding of Ocean Variability and Change in support of NOAA's Fisheries Initiative, and the second competition is Advancing Understanding of Multi-Year to Decadal Climate Variability and Predictability for U.S. Climate Prediction. The presentation contents will start with a general overview of the CVP program and its scope, and then we'll go into general notice of funding opportunity information. We'll be using NOFO a lot today. That is just the abbreviation, again, for the notice of funding opportunity. We'll also go over some frequently asked questions for the NOFO. And then we'll go into the specifics of each competition. All of the information we're going over today can be found in the notice of funding opportunity or the competition information sheets for each competition. CVP also plans to schedule 2 additional webinars specifically focused on each competition that will include subject matter experts from NOAA, as well as program managers, Jose and myself. You can attend these to learn more about ongoing research at NOAA or ask us questions in the live webinar. The Climate Variability and Predictability Program is a global research program with regional focus areas where predictability of climate signals is highest. CVP supports research that enhances our process-level understanding of the climate system through observation, modeling, analysis, and field studies. Past CVP research has focused on air-sea interaction and convection and field campaigns, with ongoing investments focused on the tropical Pacific. Bridging observations and modeling, and this spans multiple topics. Decadal variability and predictability, which we will talk about today with investments in FY24. And the program also invests in special topics, including changing oceans and fisheries, which again, we'll talk about today. Through these competitions, the program facilitates collaborations between the external community, NOAA, and other federal agencies. You can see a list of those here, as well as a map of the funded institutions over the last 5 years. The program actively engages with various NOAA and Climate Program Office priorities, most recently the Precipitation Prediction Grand Challenge, the Climate and Fisheries Initiative, which we'll talk more about today, the Coastal Inundation Initiative, and others. So now I'm going to move into the general notice of funding opportunity information and frequently asked questions. Again, this information pertains to both competitions. So the process and timeline for the competition starts when the NOFO is released. Usually 30 or so days after the release of the NOFO, the letters of intent are due, and you can find that due date in the notice of funding opportunity. Applicants then receive a response from the programs after the programs review their LOI 4 weeks after they've submitted their LOI to the program. And then usually 30 to 60 days after they've received their LOI, the full proposals are due. Again, these due dates will be available in the notice of funding opportunity. After your proposal is received by the program, it goes through a 2-stage review process, which I will talk more about in the next slide. And then sometime in April or June, the applicants are notified of program decisions. The proposal review process happens in 2 stages. The first stage focuses on scientific and technical merit, and this stage is 75% of your total score. The criteria in the scientific and technical merit review includes scientific and technical merit, applicant qualifications, and budget. The second stage of the review focuses on relevance. The relevance criteria determines the proposal's intrinsic value to NOAA, federal, regional, state, tribal, or local activities. And so this includes the program objectives that I mentioned in terms of the climate variability and predictability program scope, the scientific program priorities of the competition, and so you can find more information about that in the information sheets, the statement of diversity and inclusion, again, which is further described in the notice of funding opportunity, the PI's record of making his or her data accessible and usable by the scientific community, and the data information and sharing plan. So once the NOFO is released, you have roughly 30 days to develop a letter of intent. Again, that due date will be in the notice of funding opportunity. So each competition information sheet has specific instructions on how to submit your LOI. CVP is receiving LOIs through a Google form, and that Google form link is on the competition information sheets. If you have questions about this process, you can email Jose or myself. So we recommend that you follow the instructions on page 6 of the NOFO for the letter of intent content. Letters of intent are encouraged but not required. And again, competition managers reply to LOIs based on relevance to the targeted competition, and you should get a reply within 4 weeks of submission. So quickly, what is in the LOI? You should tell us which competition you're applying to so we know that you definitely submitted to the right program. A tentative project title, the names and institutions of the lead PIs and other co-Is, a statement of the problem, a brief summary of work to be completed, approximate cost, and relevance to the competition that is being targeted. And I highlight that because, again, that is what the program manager is reading your LOI for. A question that applicants often ask is, if LOIs are not required, what is the benefit to the applicant of submitting an LOI? It helps us and it helps you save time because the score for relevance is 25% of your final score, and the final score or your ranked score factors heavily into the selection process for awards. The relevance factor is an important component of the proposal review. It can also strengthen your proposal in terms of relevance. And so if you're borderline relevant, the LOI process can give you a boost by getting feedback from the programs. We also get questions about eligibility and submission. So who is eligible to submit a proposal? Non-federal applicants are eligible to submit a proposal through grants.gov. Non-federal applicants include institutions of higher education, nonprofits, commercial organizations, international organizations, and state, local, and Indian tribal governments. Federal institutions may still apply to this notice of funding opportunity. However, they cannot do so through grants.gov. There are instructions on the CPO funding website on how to do this. The short answer is you develop a application following the instructions in the NOFO, but instead of submitting it through grants.gov, you email it to me. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. How do I submit my application? Just went over that in the eligibility question. And then the third is, how do we submit applications for multiple institutions for the same project? So again, there are specific instructions for this in the notice of funding opportunity. Each institution should submit an identical application from their institutions. The only part of the application that's not quite identical is the budget, and that will be different for each institution. So another question we get is, how long can the proposal be? What is the length? Again, this is specified in the notice of funding opportunity. Briefly, the proposal can be 35 pages total if you have 2 investigators or less, and it can be 40 pages or less if you have 3 or more principal investigators. So there are varying lengths based on the number of principal investigators you have. What's included in that page total? Again, this list is provided in the notice of funding opportunity. What's included in that page total is the title page, the abstract, prior research, project narrative, figures, references, budget narrative, budget table, CV, current and pending, data sharing plan, and statement of diversity and inclusion. And so some of those sections also have their own page limits. And importantly, one of those is the project narrative, which includes figures and references. And so again, this has varying lengths. If you have 2 or less PIs, that's 20 or less pages. And if you have 3 or more PIs, that's 25 or less pages. And then we also get questions about proposal content. So a question we often get is, can results from prior research include non-NOAA funded projects? The answer is yes. The suggestion is that the prior research section be 2 pages or less and only focus on your last 3 years of research. Should my figures be embedded in the text or be at the end of my proposal? Either approach is allowed. However, again, remember that your figures are going to be counted in the statement of in that statement of work section or project narrative section, total page count. And so what I advise is, consider you're a reviewer. What is going to make your proposal easy to read, easy to digest, easy to understand for the reviewers that are going to be looking at your proposal? What should go in my diversity and inclusion statement? So here I've provided some examples, and again, I believe these are listed in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Some examples of things that you could speak about in that section include ways in which the project will recruit or retain underrepresented groups, collaborate with minority serving institutions, foster an inclusive and safe environment, share data and or information in ways that is accessible to minority serving institutions. Applicants are encouraged to highlight past work in these areas and the value those experiences will add to the proposal. So again, we encourage you to provide specific examples of the ways in which your project will further diversity and inclusion rather than list these different categories of ways. Can the applicant request federal salaries in the budget? In most cases, no. However, there are some exceptions. And so if you think you are an exceptional case, please follow up with an email and we can discuss. All right, so that wraps up our kind of frequently asked questions section for general NOFO information. Jose, did you have anything to add or questions to ask that I may have missed?
I just want to add that for the reviewer section, it's an independent panel of reviewers. So we look very closely to conflict of interest. So no reviewer will have a conflict of interest with any proposal. We take that very seriously. And I think that's about it.
Yes, thank you. All right. So moving on to the competitions, the first one that I'll talk about is advancing understanding of ocean variability and change in support of NOAA's Climate Ecosystem Fisheries Initiative. And again, we do plan to schedule a live webinar that goes deeper into this topic and focuses more on the ongoing research and this initiative itself within NOAA. So one thing to note here is that the Modeling, Analysis, Predictions, and Projections program is also having a competition on this topic. And so I encourage you to look at their competition sheet as well. You can only apply to either the CVP or the MAP competition focused on fisheries and CEFI. All right, so I've talked about competition information sheets, but our competition information sheets. Competition information sheets is a standalone document that details the priorities of the competition, and it is complementary and separate to the Notice of Funding Opportunity. So again, you cannot go to the Notice of Funding Opportunity and find this detailed information. You have to navigate to the Climate Program Office funding website to find these competition information sheets. Please read these competition information sheets. You cannot rely on the Notice of Funding Opportunity language alone to understand all of the priorities and interests of the program's competitions. This is what you should be looking at when you find the competition information sheet. Okay, I mentioned that MAP has a competition focused on fisheries and marine ecosystems. I will move on. So what are the drivers for this competition? At a high level, the competition is advancing the research foundation and the objectives of NOAA's strategic plan to advance a climate-ready nation. It's also advancing the cross-NOAA Climate Ecosystems Fisheries Initiative and furthering the recommendations from U.S. CLIVAR community workshops. And those include the daily decadal ecological forecasting workshop that was held a year or two ago, as well as the paper that lays out kind of the research challenge of climate at the coasts for U.S. CLIVAR. And these high-level drivers are linked in the competition information sheet. The competition information sheet, as well as the NOFO, outlines the budget limits for proposals for this competition. PIs should target 175 to 250K for the total project budget per year for up to 3 years. So that means if you have 4 investigators working on the same project, the sum of those 4 investigator budgets should not be above 250 per year. So in this competition, CVP is soliciting coupled or ocean model process studies linked with observational data analysis to better understand physical and or biogeochemical ocean processes for improved modeling and observing. Investments will support the science needs of NOAA fisheries and advance the research foundation for NOAA's CEFI. And there are 3 main priorities that CVP is encouraging. And there are some motivating questions in the competition information sheet as well that I encourage you to look over, but have not included them here. So the 3 priorities are to, 3 overlapping priorities are to advance understanding of variability and change and the mechanistic drivers for ocean variables, indices, and processes, advance understanding of sources of predictability and mechanisms of variability in the larger Earth system that could inform future improvements to NOAA observing and modeling systems and their future applications to fisheries. And I'm highlighting future here because it's not like your project is going out and improving the observing system or doing modeling improvement. But the process level, process understanding focused research that CVP supports can down the road motivate other research that then furthers the observing system or modeling system for NOAA. And then the 3rd priority focuses on advancing the understanding of the large, regional, and small-scale processes, considering both local and remote drivers and the scale interactions between large-scale climate phenomena and small-scale ocean features. So all 3 of these have an asterisk, and so consider all 3 of these with an emphasis on its relevance to fisheries. So the goal of this work is really to strengthen our fundamental understanding of physical and or biogeochemical mechanisms that affect ocean conditions in the context of climate variability and change, relevant to fisheries and marine ecosystem management. And here I'm really highlighting the Climate Ecosystems Fisheries Initiative, and you can read more about those questions and requirements. Proposals should clearly describe how outcomes will advance our understanding of ocean variability and change in meaningful ways, or inform future NOAA observing and modeling strategies that could have potential future benefits to fisheries and ecosystem-related science or decision needs. Once awarded, projects selected for funding will be required to participate and engage with ongoing NOAA research in support of NOAA's Climate Ecosystems Fisheries Initiative through the participation in the Marine Ecosystems Task Force or other activities. And so the Marine Ecosystems Task Force is a continuation of earlier investments that both the MAP and CVP programs made. So the MAP and CVP programs funded PIs, come together to form this task force and work with NOAA collaborators to move these research questions forward together. So the program encourages collaborations with NOAA, but does not require it. And in earlier slides, I highlighted that these funding opportunities really facilitate collaborations across many different entities. And I've already highlighted that awarded PIs will be part of this larger task force. And so even though you don't have a collaboration when you, even if you don't have a collaboration when you apply, you will have a collaboration if you're funded through the Marine Ecosystem Task Force. And again, a live webinar is going to be scheduled soon. Information about that should be on the CVP program website. If you're having a hard time finding information about that, please contact Jose or myself and we can put you in the right direction. So I think that wraps up. It does the information for advancing understanding of ocean variability and change in support of NOAA's Climate Ecosystems Fisheries Initiative. In addition to that competition, we're also holding a competition that's focused on advancing understanding of multi-year to decadal variability and predictability. And so I will move into that topic. So again, if you didn't see the fisheries talk, I'm going to highlight it here again. Please navigate to the competition information sheet. On the right is a snapshot of the competition information sheet. This is a separate document from the notice of funding opportunity. It accompanies the NOFO, but it is not included in the NOFO. This competition information sheet has important information about the program's priorities for this specific competition, as well as how to submit your LOI. So again, you really need to look at the competition information sheet if you plan to submit an application to this competition. All right, so this competition's drivers are advancing NOAA's strategic plan at a high level and advancing the objectives of a climate-ready nation, furthering research to advance national and international themes, building on past CVP program investments, and those webinars of its FY20 funded projects are available online if you want to look at what types of work CVP has funded in this area in the past. As well as furthering, again, the external community recommendations in the scientific area, carrying forward recommendations from a mock science team and a workshop focused on multi-year climate predictions that was held a few years ago. So again, these competition drivers are linked in the competition information sheet. The competition information sheet, as well as the NOFO, has budget information. So PIs can budget between $175K to $300K per year for up to 3 years for these projects. That means if you have 5 PIs that are on the same project, the total budget that they should have each year should total up to $300K. Not $300K per PI, $300K total for the project per year. CVP is interested in data analysis and our coupled modeling studies focused on the process level understanding of the role of the ocean, land, atmosphere, and our cryosphere on multi-year to decadal timescales in a changing climate in 2 priority areas. The first is looking at the mechanisms that govern variability of the coupled climate system and its predictability on this timescale frame. The second is looking at the relationship between AMOC and its impacts, and that includes historical impacts, current and/or future impacts. So previously, the program called out this area focused specifically on sea level. Here we're expanding this beyond sea level to think about the suite of impacts that AMOC is connected to. I've got asterisks for 1 and 2. So the emphasis here is on its relevance to US climate and its territories. So proposed work should identify state mechanisms, sources of predictability on the multi-year to decadal timescale and a changing climate. Proposals should articulate how anticipated results or project outcomes could help lead to future improvements, further future modeling research to improve skillful multi-year decadal prediction systems, or further research related to skillful predictions of climate and its extremes. Awarded projects. So projects that are funded are expected to participate in a PI working group that meets monthly and develops a scope and work plan to strengthen collaboration across these projects and with ongoing NOAA work in this area. This is a less formal working group than a task force that some of you may be familiar with. Collaborations with NOAA. CVP encourages but does not require collaborations between the external community and NOAA centers, laboratories, cooperative institutes, and programs, as well as affiliated projects. If you want to learn more about ongoing research in this area at NOAA, I suggest you tune in to the live webinar we will be having with subject matter experts on this topic. I'll also note that for this topic specifically, CVP encourages but does not require, and I've underlined that, again, this is not a requirement, that projects that consider leveraging NOAA-supported stakeholder-facing programs to motivate their underlying foundational research questions. And so I've highlighted a few below, which includes the National Integrated Heat Health Information System, the National Integrated Drought Information System, and the CAP-RISA program. So again, a live webinar will be scheduled to hear from NOAA subject matter experts about ongoing NOAA research on this topic. If you can't find information about this live webinar, please contact myself or Jose and we'll be able to point you in the right direction. Okay, that wraps up the information that we have for you today. If you have a detailed question that you'd like to discuss, please give us please email us and we'll set up the time to chat. And with that, I will turn it back to Jose to see if he has any questions or anything to add.
Not really. We look forward to hear from everybody, and we hope to see everybody's interest in these topics. And we really look forward to see the proposals that we will receive for this topic. So thanks everyone for tuning in.
Great. Thank you.